All right. Ellen is here. It gives me great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to give to you, or to introduce to you, Miss Ellen Dekker, all the way from Israel, King Engine Bearings. I've met her in Brazil, and definitely an interesting lady with a knowledge base, which I was astounded. So, Ellen, the floor is yours.
Okay, I came here today, thanks for the opportunity, to tell you a little bit more about our products, King Engine Bearings. We are engine bearing specialists. Our only product is engine bearings. And I will tell you a little bit more about the challenges that we meet in the aftermarket for the bearings, and the solutions that we have developed for it, and how we treat it. A little bit more I'll start about the company. The company is a family-owned and a family-run company. It's established about 60 years ago by the grandfather. Over the years, we have grown a lot. It started like as a little workshop. In the 70s, 80s, we started with exports. We bought a warehouse in the USA in the 80s, and part of the family moved there and is now running the USA branch for the company. Half of our turnover is sold in the USA. In the beginning of this century, we moved to a new plant, which has in the meantime enlarged a lot due to the increasing demand for our products. Part of our factory is the raw material plant, where we produce our own raw materials. Over the years, we have added special section of the factory for OEM production for aviation industry. Due to all the demand in the market, we had to develop more advanced materials and more advanced products. This enabled we could do that because the raw material we produced by ourselves, and we could very easily adjust ourselves and test and find new products, new materials. Several years ago, we bought a factory in Serbia where we produce sintered products, and there recently we established also a production line for bearings. Our latest development is polymer-coated bearings, and later in the presentation I will show you a little bit more about it. So as I said, we actually produce everything in-house, from basic raw materials, which we purchase like aluminum ingots, copper powders, copper springs, silicone pieces. We produce the raw materials by ourselves, store them. This enables us to be very flexible. We keep stocks according to our demand. We control the quality, and we are able very quickly to produce newer materials. Obviously, our company is certified for the OEM automotive and OEM aviation, and also by the FAA in the USA. So the production is taking place only in Israel, and recently, as I said, one production line we opened in Serbia. Most of all our products are shipped from Israel. A big niche market for us and very important cooperation is with the OE companies in the USA in the aviation industry. The demands that they have for their engines actually pushes us to develop solutions and find a way how to provide them with a bearing that can carry all the load and really provides an environment for smooth operation of the engine. Another very important niche market for us is the race bearings. As Rob already said, in the USA is a very big market for this. And as we are also very active in the USA market and very known, this is something we focused on since nearly 10 years ago. So we developed a whole range for all engines that are used in this industry. And we have a cooperation with several race teams in different type of race competitions. Also for this industry, we had to develop special materials, special design to give a product that really can perform well. A normal aftermarket bearing will cause very quickly engine failure. To enable to do this, we have, of course, a strong R&D department. For every bearing that we develop and add to our range, we do the calculations of the load pressure on the bearing and what is the environment of the bearing in the engine. And based on that, we design the bearing, we define the geometric features like eccentricity, crush height, of course, and the correct type of material that is required for a correct function of the bearing in the engine. Of course, we don't know anything, but actually we only know how to produce the bearings. And for knowing the demand of the bearings in the engine itself, we need feedback from the market. So we have a very close relationship with several engine rebuilders, and we are now more and more also establishing relationships with the engine rebuilder organizations in several markets. And this helps us a lot to identify what are the needs and to come up with solutions that will help the market to cope with the challenges. So actually, just point out several challenges that we identified and for which we have developed a solution. Many engines are supercharged or turbocharged, and this causes a very high load or increases very much the load on the bearing. Conventional bearing needs to be able to carry that load. And as the engines go smaller, the parts are also going smaller. You have less surface, and the less surface needs to carry the same high load that was previously carried by a bigger surface. So this requires the bearing to be stronger. And how do you achieve that? To make stronger materials. The same for diesel engines, higher loads. When they make them compactor, the loads are even getting higher. The use of high viscosity oils is also making a problem for the bearing. The oil film is getting thinner, which causes actually more risk for metal-to-metal contact. The crankshaft touches the bearing gets scratched, and it might eventually lead to engine failure, which you really don't want to have. And of course, the start-stop and hybrid engines also cause very high metal-to-metal contact. Constantly, the crankshaft is touching the bearing. And the material of the bearing should be capable to wear this contact and not wear, because otherwise, again, you will have engine failure. So what are the solutions that we developed for these challenges? Okay, in short, this is just a short list of the conditions, the challenges. High load, small or minimum low oil film thickness, a lot of metal-to-metal contact, and high temperatures, because higher speeds. This is a list of the materials that we have available in our range. Most of the materials are conventional. I think in the bags I put a folder, and there you have a list of the materials. But I think there are not listed the recent new materials that we added. It should be printed in the next folder. I will just mention, you cannot read it so good, and later I will also show it in the presentation. The materials that we actually developed are very strong and also soft on the other side. It is actually something that doesn't make sense. Hard or strong and soft. And how we do achieve it? By building up different layers. So we have a steel bag, a copper layer, and then we have a third layer which is very strong. Either it is made of sputter material, sputter machine, in a sputtering machine, sputter technology, or by silver bismuth overplating. The silver bismuth overplating is actually unique in the aftermarket. I don't know any manufacturer that offers this material in the market. The performance of the bearing, the load capacity of the bearing in this material is as good as sputter bearings. So it is very high load, up to 120 megapascal. But it is just done in a different technology. And we can, it is more cost effective. On top of that, we add a polymer layer. The polymer is soft and has a high possibility to reduce wear or to resist wear. It behaves like Teflon or graphite. When you touch it, you scratch it, and then you go over it with your finger, and you will not see any scratch. So this is something that has proven itself as a very good solution for all the challenges that I mentioned. We are also adding a polymer layer to strengthen aluminum bearings, which are used mainly for start-stop engines. So depending on the load capacity required in the specific engine, we either choose for a strong aluminum with a polymer layer or a tri-metal that can carry very high load with a polymer layer. So for our race bearings, we developed a bearing which is a tri-metal bearing, which undergoes a special treatment that hardens the surface of the bearing. We supply this in the market now for at least like 6, 7, 8 years, and it has proven itself as very good performing. We are working with high-level competition teams, and even a company like Koenigsegg that produces the supercars, the company in Sweden, I'm sure you know about this, everyone loves cars. They are using these bearings from us in their cars. The silver-based bearings are used in aftermarket for high-loaded engines. I will just quickly go over it. It has silver bismuth overlay. It is a lead-free bearing. And the load capacity goes up to 120 megapascal. The sputter bearings, I assume everyone knows the sputter bearings. They also have a very high load capacity, up to 120 megapascal, and are also lead-free. It's actually aluminium that is in a special way in the sputtering machine, molecule by molecule, added on top of the bearing. The polymer coating is actually a solid lubricant. There are different types available. We also have different polymer coatings, depending on the use of the bearing. We use the molybdenum disulfide as a solid lubricant for this coating, and has proven a very good resist wear and anti-seizure. The coating is applied on our race bearings for a certain type of range in which this is required. In normal races, we usually don't use that, but when you are in the top competition, you would like to use that bearing. And also, we did a project for Formula One, and also there we used, obviously, the polymer coating, because otherwise they have a problem. Of course, before we launch a new material or new bearing, we do testing. We have a test rig in our factory and a dynamometer. So usually we take some other bearings and we compare. As we seen, I don't know if you can see it well, but if you have a look at the XP bearing, which is the bearing, the normal race bearing, and the XPC, which is the race bearing with the polymer coating, you will see that that there is less wear after you run it for 24 hours at 70 megapascal, where you cause it to have metal-to-metal contact. So this is a test that shows that indeed there is an increase in wear-resistant, anti-seizure resistance using the polymer coating. Now we also tested it on a dynamometer. I'm sure that some of you know Ron Shaver. He's a very well-known NASCAR engine builder. At his premises, in one of his dynamometers, we run a test using normal race bearings and race bearings with a polymer coating, and using different oils. We had this cooperation with Driven Oil that supplies oil for racing industry. So we used a conventional oil and a synthetic oil. And actually after the test, we saw that the polymer-coated bearings with the synthetic oil gave the best results. After we took out, we saw that actually the polymer-coated bearings showed 40% less wear than the normal race bearings. As I said, for the start-stop engines, this is also the answer for the contact, metal-to-metal contact. When you have the polymer coating, the bearing is protected. It is like a protective shield on the bearing. So for us, as a bearing manufacturer and specialist, we want to provide to the markets what they need, what is working well. But also we don't want to over-qualify or to bring in the market products that are too expensive or too sophisticated. So for each engine, we calculate what is the need. What is the need of the bearing? Should it be in this material, the more expensive material, or the less expensive material? So there are some applications that are using the same bearing. As a bearing manufacturer with a production line, it's cost effective for the production to just run one type of bearing and you sell it for all the engines. But if it is a bearing that is very expensive, and for a certain range of that engine that use the same bearing, it's not required, then we offer a more cost-effective solution, not to overprice, let's say, the product and not to cause costs that are not required or not needed. So for different engines, we offer different materials. You can either go for the highest, that is not required, or for the more cost-effective solution. Now, all of these, the materials, it's very important, of course, for good performance of the bearing, but that is not all. You need to be very accurate with your wall thickness. The thickness of the bearing, the eccentricity, you should control it and you should provide a bearing that is very constant in the thickness to make the life of the engine rebuilder easy and not to cause them buying several sets just to get the right clearance in the engine picking the shells and measuring them. So that is something that we focus on, and this is one part of our quality product that is very important. We control our bearing thickness, the wall thickness, and provide a very constant wall thickness over the set. This as well, we test ourselves because this is what you need to do if you want to be in the top level. So we had sent several bearings from different manufacturers, the same bearing in quantity of 50 shells, and have them measured. And we got the results back. It was done by an independent laboratory, SGS in Switzerland. And when we got everything back and we went over all the results, measuring results, we were very glad to see that actually our bearings are very constant in thickness, and also actually we received that in the feedback from the market. So this is something we can help the engine builder, the user of our product with. So these two elements, the right materials and the actually controlling the quality by keeping a very constant thickness, that is making our bearing a good solution for the engine builders, and we are glad that we are able to provide it. That was very short. If there's more questions, I'm here. We'll be glad to provide more information.
Thank you, Ellen, for those kind words and technical jargon, which I believe is really important to know about and obviously to use. I know King Engine Bearings is all over the world, well known because of a quality product that they do produce. So if there's any new products in the making, what they're busy with in the labs or wherever they're making it, they're always doing it the best. So King Bearings, may you go very, very far. And again, we would adore more partnership with you as well. Thank you so much.